Yo, what is up, guys? It's Cone back here again tonight with another episode of After the Buzzer. My setup looks way different. Same with the lighting. I'm right now out of town. I've been out of town for the last couple days, and now I'm going to be out of town for about 4 or 5 more. So if you see more of these videos, I'll either have this background or like a hotel background. I'm sorry about that, and sorry with the lighting too. I'm sure it's not very great. But I'm doing the best I can right now to still try and get y'all these videos while I'm out of town. I still want to talk about the conference finals because they're a big deal. So I apologize for those issues, but I promise I'll be back to the normal setup by the time the NBA finals roll around and by the time the end of each of the conference final series roll around. Unless the Suns sweep, then maybe not. But, we'll see if the Clippers can take a game. But the reason I wanted to get you this video right now is because the Atlanta Hawks, a team that has been an underdog in pretty much every single game they've played so far, which is like kind of unprecedented in the NBA playoffs for an Eastern Conference Finals team to have been an underdog in pretty much every single game that they've played in. They just took game 1 against the Milwaukee Bucks in a game that, like the rest of the series and the rest of the games before this, they were an underdog in. Not just an underdog, but a big underdog. I think Vegas had them as like 8-point underdogs in this game. And they end up winning by 3 points, winning at the end of the game. Trey Young hitting a couple of free throws and Chris Middleton missing a 3 at the buzzer. This was just a great win for them. In the first half, they had some problems, particularly with dribble penetration, which I think is one of the biggest factors in this series. The Bucks need to exploit the Hawks' inability to guard that a lot of times. The Hawks don't have a lot of great wing defenders right now, especially with like DeAndre Hunter sidelined for the rest of the season. And so the Bucks need to attack that. The Hawks haven't done a great job stopping that, but also they haven't had to face any like huge dribble penetration threats like they're going to face on the Bucks. Like on the Sixers, Ben Simmons could have done it, but he never attacked the basket. For the Knicks, like Derrick Rose was the best example of a dribble penetration guy, and he was dropping like 30 a game against them a lot of nights. So they've got to shore it up on that end. And in the first half, it didn't look like they had figured it out. And in the second half, they really stepped it up, not just on the defensive end, but on the offensive end too, putting up 34 and 28 points in the 2 quarters following halftime. It was just a great win for this Hawks team. Like I said, underdogs pretty much all the way throughout, and I think it's time to stop underestimating them. If you still are underestimating the Hawks, you should probably stop at this point. This Hawks team could win the finals. They really could. And there's a couple reasons for that, but let's talk about the biggest one, which is Trey Young. Trey Young had a masterpiece in tonight's game, and people are talking way too much about like where he should be ranked in the NBA right now. If you ask me, he's like top 15-ish. But I think right now we just need to focus on what Trey Young is doing right now, and we can talk about player rankings like later down the line. But tonight, in particular, he dropped 48 points, 7 rebounds, and 11 assists. I tweeted this out earlier that he reminds me a lot of James Harden, the way that he kind of dissects defense, especially in the pick and roll. Trey Young is a master at the pick and roll already. He's only been in the league for a few seasons, and it feels like every single possession that he runs a pick and roll, whether it's with a Clint Capella or whether it's with like a John Collins, it always ends up in a bucket, either in a floater or in a lob. Or sometimes even Trey Young will throw some crazy like wraparound pass or a bounce pass to the guy driving to the cup. Either way, any of those options are available, and it feels like they always end up in a bucket. It's very rare that they don't. The only way it doesn't is if the roll man misses a layup or a dunk, or if Trey Young misses that floater, which he hardly ever does. It's almost a guaranteed 2 points every time they come down the court, and teams haven't figured out how to stop it. Because if you have the center step up, Trey's going to kill you with it and hit the guy that's rolling to the basket. If you stay back in drop coverage and guard the guy that's rolling to the basket, Trey Young's just going to hit you with that little floater. And he's so quick, which is something that's James Harden is kind of like deceptively quick. Trey Young is just straight up quick. And the way that Trey Young gets that first step, as soon as the roller sets that screen and he starts cutting to the basket, you have to make a decision like that. And half the time, you can't weigh all these options that Trey Young can throw at you. You've just got to play it out as it happens, because it happens like bang, bang. The second the guy sets that screen and Trey starts going around, he is diving to the cup, and he's either going to get that little floater or a pass to the roll man almost every single time. And that has killed every single team. It killed the Knicks, it killed the Sixers, and now it's killing the Bucks, because they scored so many points off lobs tonight, off of Trey Young floaters. And the worst part about that for the Bucks is the only way to really stop that is to commit heavily to guarding that, playing off of Trey Young and going under the screen so that he can't do that. And then if you go under the screen, he's going to drill like a 30-footer. That's how good he is. Or he could fake you out and start driving and then hit a step back or a side step 3 or a deep 2, which he did multiple times tonight when Pat Connaughton got switched onto him, which was a terrible mistake by the Bucks. Jrue Holiday did a good job guarding Trae Young towards the end of this game, but over the course of it, Trae Young was getting kind of whatever he wanted. And when I talk about this series, when I talked about it after the Hawks beat the 76ers, what I said is that Jrue Holiday is going to have to be big in this series. And Trae Young, for the Hawks to win this series, is going to have to find a way to score despite Jrue Holiday on the other side. Jrue Holiday is a very worthy all-defensive caliber guy. And he did have some possessions tonight where he really made Trae Young make tough decisions with the basketball and ultimately either throw it away or just miss the shot. And he did that. He did that on a couple occasions. But Trae Young, like I said, is so quick, and the Hawks have some guys who are so good at setting screens, whether it's John Collins or Clint Capella, that are such good lob threats that you can't go under that, or you can't go over that screen all the time, forcing switches and forcing Trae Young to you just have to give Trae Young open threes sometimes. It's so deadly. And that's another reason why I think this Hawks team is so dangerous, is teams haven't seen this. This is the first time this Hawks team led by Trae Young has made the playoffs, and they're making a deep run. I think part of that is because they have such a good system, and they have some players that fit alongside each other very, very well. And no one's ever seen it before. They've seen iterations of this, but this particular personnel has not been seen in this capacity before, because you can study film all you want, but it's different when you play the Hawks. It's different when you have to make those split decisions. Do I step up on Trae Young and guard the floater, or do I drop back and let him have that floater and instead guard the roll man? You have to make those quick decisions. And maybe a couple of years down the line, that pick and roll between Trae Young and either Clint Capella or John Collins will be less effective because teams will have seen it more often. But for right now, it is one of the most deadly plays in basketball at the moment, a Trae Young-led pick and roll. And the Bucks need to figure out how to stop it. They have to be better on the defensive end. They were giving up open threes a lot of the time. They were giving up a ton of offensive rebounds to Clint Capella and John Collins. John Collins continues to be a monster on the offensive glass. He did this against the Sixers also in that game where the Sixers blew that big lead. And in addition, in the game where the Sixers end up winning Game 6, both of those games, he was kind of a monster on the offensive glass at times, and that really hurt the Sixers. The Bucks need to keep him off the glass. They have the personnel to do so. John Collins is super athletic, but he shouldn't be able to get so many rebounds over both Brook Lopez and Giannis if they're both on the floor. You've got to do a better job of boxing out, crashing those boards, because if you give them second opportunities, this Hawks offense is so dangerous that they're going to make you pay pretty much every single time you give them a second chance. If you get a stop against these Hawks, you have to take advantage of it. And you either have to secure it and make sure you set up a play, or you need to run in transition. That's something I would like to see the Bucks do more, because when they started running in transition towards the end of this game, they had some crazy run, which consisted of a lot of Giannis lobs and a lot of transition play between whoever was bringing the ball up and Giannis. Giannis is the key, and I know that's dumb to say, that Giannis is the X factor to this series, but he really is. He should be dominating the Hawks, especially when they put him in at center. The Bucks need to play more Giannis at center minutes. Brook Lopez, to his credit, has been really good as of recently. But for the Bucks to be most effective a lot of times, they need Giannis out there at the center, because Clint Capella doesn't have the foot speed to keep up. If John Collins is guarding him, he has the foot speed to at least get there and kind of contest. Giannis will most of the time probably muscle him out of the way and hit the bucket, but he's quick enough to contest it at least. Clint Capella is a better defender than John Collins is, but he doesn't quite have the speed, and therefore he's not getting up off his feet as quick to stop Giannis from getting that little just finger roll at the cup, because he's like, a million feet tall. They've got to do a better job of exploiting this Hawks weakness to these dribble drives. They've got to push it in transition. They've got to attack the Hawks on their heels, and the Hawks will try and foul Giannis, and Giannis has to make a lot of those and ones and make his free throws. He did that for a pretty good job tonight. It just wasn't their night. Jrue Holiday had a great game on the offensive end. This was his best game maybe as a Buck yet, with 33 points, 4 rebounds, 10 assists. It was what they needed from him. And the biggest problem with this team tonight was Chris Middleton. Middleton only had 15, 5, and 4. Chris Middleton's got to be better. If they want to win the finals, if they want to even make it out of this series, because it's not a given, The Bucks should be the favorites. It makes sense. They have Giannis, they have Chris Middleton, they have Drew Holiday, but the Hawks have a great team. You cannot underestimate the Hawks, and I think that's been a problem. Teams keep underestimating the Hawks, and I think the world as a whole is underestimating the Hawks. Stop sleeping on the Hawks. The Bucks need all of their guys firing on all cylinders to win this series. Chris Middleton has to be better. He is so far in his career been really disappointing in the Eastern Conference Finals when they've needed him. I think he's averaging, if I saw this stat correctly, someone posted on Twitter from StatMuse, I believe, Chris Middleton is averaging about 14 points per game in his now 7 after this game, played Eastern Conference Finals games. That's not good enough. Not even close. It's not even close to what they need from Chris Middleton on a nightly basis to win this series and to win the finals that they're trying to. Chris Middleton needs to be putting up 20 to 25 a night, and maybe some nights more than that with how potent these Hawks are. You've got to be able to score. They can get stops sometimes, but you've got to be able to turn those stops into scoring opportunities. That was the problem a lot of times against the Brooklyn Nets. They would get a stop, which is tough against the Nets. And so when you get those stops, you've got to take advantage of them. And instead, they a lot of time ran some iso ball, and we saw it again tonight. There were a lot of plays where the Bucks just kind of isolated. When at the beginning of the game, ball movement, transition play, and even towards the end of the game, Giannis was getting a ton of lobs because they were doing great plays, they're having ball movement, and Giannis was getting to the cup. They were doing things right, and then they just keep falling into this isolation basketball. Stop isolating. You have Giannis, you have Chris Middleton, you have Drew Holiday, and you've got good shooters around you. And I'm going to say Pat Connaughton, but we saw what happened with Pat Connaughton airballing the hopeful game-winning shot for the Bucks at the end of the game. Didn't quite go, the way they wanted it to with the airball, but he is normally a good shooter. You've got Brook Lopez, who's a solid shooter. You've got PJ Tucker, who's one of the best corner 3 shooters ever. You've got Bobby Portis, who had a great game. Bobby Portis should have played more minutes. I thought Bobby Portis should have played more than 15 minutes. If you're not going to have Giannis out there at center, maybe you should have Bobby Portis out there instead of Brook Lopez, because Bobby Portis is quicker, and he's been one of the best 3-point shooters on this whole team and in the whole league, I believe, at the center position all season. You've got to have him out there more. I don't know why Jeff Teague got 6 minutes. Someone please explain to me why Jeff Teague got 6 minutes in this game. Maybe they thought because he's been on the Hawks before, he would have like a revenge game or something, but I don't know why Jeff Teague was ever on the court in this game. I don't know. The Bucks got to take better advantage of the Hawks' weaknesses, and if they don't, the Hawks are going to win. And the Hawks are going to win the East, and they might win the finals. Stop sleeping on the Atlanta Hawks. That's about all I got to say. I appreciate you guys watching this video. Let me know what you thought of what I said. Let me know what your thoughts are on Trey Young's game, the James Harden kind of comparison I gave him. That's not at all saying that Trey Young isn't his own player. Trey Young is his own player. Just because I say he plays kind of like James Harden doesn't mean anything, because at the same time, Trey Young pulls up from like 30 feet and James Harden has never really done that. It's never really been his game. They're two completely different players. I just see the James Harden influence in Trey Young's game, and I think that's a better comparison for him than like the Steph Curry comparisons that we've seen in the past. Shout out Nate McMillan, doing a great job proving that he is a worthy coach in this league after being fired last season. Mike Budenholzer continues to confuse me, and I don't know why he's not. There was a report that the Bucks are kind of planning to keep Budenholzer since they beat the Nets. If they lose to the Hawks, even if the Bucks win the finals, I would still fire Mike Budenholzer. That's how bad he has been and how much he's disappointed me over the course of this playoff run. Let me know what you think about that. Let me know what you think about this series. Who you got in this series, in how many games. The Hawks steal game 1 again. For the 3rd straight series in a row, the Hawks take game 1. The Bucks got to come out better and take game 2. And they really need to take that game 3, because if they go down 2-1, it's going to be scary. So I appreciate you guys watching this video. Let me know your thoughts on all that stuff. I'll see you guys later. A real one save.